uh, it's kind of like not too much has changed in some ways.
This green light's flashing.
It's recording.
No.
But I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, so they've added skyscrapers, they've done this and that, but you know, the people in society hasn't really changed. It hasn't like where in other places when you know westernization comes in, it just devastates the people. It devastates the population. Mm-hmm. People are just like, you know, just they're thrown out of whack. They have no more place in society. Mm-hmm. But for China, no, it's everything is the same as you know, because their society is already sophisticated to that point. But because they even had printing presses. Mm-hmm. Way before the Europeans. But even then, it took them a while to get the printing presses, you would imagine. Oh, yeah. But the reason why is because they base themselves off of characters. Yeah. Characters are always limited because that means your language is... It's kind of not so much that it's limited by... it's not limited by your printed language, but... It's slow to develop new terms.
Can you imagine having learned 8,000 characters?
Yeah.
You know, that's a pretty. I mean, that's your alphabet, that's a pretty damn big alphabet.
Yeah, that's.
And yet at the same time, any common English dictionary has 35 or 40,000 words.
Yeah.
And you'll know most of them. You know, so you probably know at least 30,000. So right then and there, you've got to beat.
Yeah. Because like when you watch Deadwood. But those guys were fairly sophisticated because they were.
Yeah, I don't think that was very real. I think that was. I mean, it was a nice piece of theatrics, but I think
it was real.
It had a lot of real elements.
No. The guy that wrote it, he said that he really this is the way they would talk. That is the way they would speak to each other. Because look at the way they wrote letters. Look at Lincoln's speech. That's
possible.
That's a speech. That's a speech he scrawled on the back of an envelope. I mean, he realized, oh damn, I need to write something. So he just scrawled something down. You know, and it was basically the simple thing developed in time space. You know, and but it's like it's a simple jot for just saying, hey, I really approve of this cemetery, or I support this cemetery being built here. You know, to honor this horrific carnage. You know, because I said, it's like really, we're trying to beat these guys, but also we don't, the thing is, we want to reconcile too. Mm-hmm. You know, because that's the thing, Lincoln was, good about it, is that he realized we have to have this reconciliation.
It's a shame he was killed.
I know.
How differently the whole country would have developed.
I know.
We would have been unified much faster. The Republican Party probably would have stayed much more liberal. You know, the funny thing is, in Lincoln's time,
the South would have been rebuilt.
The Republicans and the Democrats, what we would consider their role was reversed from what it is today.
Yeah.
But the Republicans were like the Democrats.
Yeah.
Are today.
Because there were, because think about it, the president basically had to march troops into the South again.
Oh yeah.
In the '60s. Yeah, just so a little black girl could go to school.
Well, Ken Burns, I mean, that's his question: is the Civil War really over? I think it finally has kind of petered out, but I think it will never go away.
Yeah,
it is. It's there. It's staying.
Yeah, it was shocking because when I was traveling around and driving around, it's just like how many black people were there. Just I mean, it's not, and in Washington D.C. even, too. But
yeah,
it's just kind of like, wow, okay. I mean, it's just this is suburban America.
Of course, your mom and I grew up in L.A.
And so we're used to the Mexican model.
Yeah.
So isn't it interesting how we have there's this kind of massive populations. So we got the Mexican population in California and San Diego, and you got the black population in all over the South, basically.
Yeah.
So. It's like there's kind of slums in both.
Yeah.
There's the nice neighborhoods and then there's the slums, and the slums is what's always glorified. But you've been in the slums, right? Of Los Angeles.
Been in the slums. I worked in the slums.
7
years.
Or you worked in.
I worked in Watts.
Oh, you worked in Watts.
I worked in City Terrace. I wouldn't call it a slum. I'd call it a barrio.
Yeah.
I worked in Temple City. Was the nicest place I worked, really.
Right. But I mean, like in the worst place you worked at, or like not so much worked at. Oh yeah, the worst place you worked at? Would it be like the Shield? Whereas, like, you just kind of have some crazy violence just break out, every once in a while. Have you watched the show?
I worked in a couple of places where
You just had, like, a roving gang,
if you had stood there overnight, I'm sure you would have heard at least one gunshot at night.
Right.
I worked in a place that I was driving up in that area a while back and ran into a policeman out in the street directing traffic out away from there. I mean, a very violent area.
Right.
In fact, I got slugged. I got clobbered.
Wow.
And I was probably had more fear.
What was the ethnic makeup of the neighborhood?
Oh, it was black. It was completely black.
And just like economically depressed.
And let me just say this: there was a lot of very nice black people there.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of very nice black people there.
Yeah.
And I dealt with all levels, all ages. And
I mean, but like to like the level of the Cosbys, like that, proper and
yeah,
upright.
there were people there.
But religious.
There were people
too.
there that gone to UCLA. There were people there that. They're just a lot of nice people,
yeah.
And they would come by and they'd talk to you. And
You know what was interesting about that sci-fi program, Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah.
There were different tribes that live in different planets,
Yeah.
and they're different. So they're different little societies, and they lived a different way, or like each society lived a different way. Well, they had the Gemini. The Gemini were very religious.
Mm-hmm.
So who is Geminis? The Gemini people, black people, black actors. They kept having black actors as were Gemini, but to represent like more religious.
Yeah.
So it was kind of ironic. It's like, God,
Funny world.
I've met a lot of religious black people, especially the Army.
Yeah. I should go eat something.
Yeah, but I think that's a good thing because religion it always organizes your life. It really does help organize and associate your life. Especially
certainly for some people, religion has been their salvation, or at least it's what they perceive as their salvation. There's a guy at work who swears, he basically is evangelical. He swears. He was just drinking and wild and just completely. He would have been in jail forever if he hadn't found God. He had a complete epiphany, and now he's a Bible scholar. Yes.
Yeah.
If I got a Bible question, I ask him.
Right.
Very nice guy.
Yeah.
And
that's why I dug taking that old Hebrew or the Old Testament as literary text.
Yeah.
But, that was just because the guy basically explained the history of it. So like, this is when this author wrote it. This is when this author wrote it. Rewrote it, and this is when this author rewrote it.
You know what I want to do sometime is really get a good book on the recent revelations about the Dead Sea Scrolls.
There's nothing. There's nothing in there about Christ. There's not.
I've heard he's called the evil.
It's not. He's not mentioned in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's at the same time as him.
Why were they kept under wraps so long?
I think that's part of it. Well,
I think it was political.
Well, it wasn't so much that, but there's a lot of them. They wanted to get all the text,
Well, it's just about all been released, hasn't it? It was
it's all released.
On the internet.
But there's I've seen the show. There's nothing about the Christ in there, but there is stuff about just what life was like, or it's kind of referencing life and different religious stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad they brought back the Jews for Rome season 2. It's like because Timon, it's just a real neat kind of character. There's like he's basically a thug, but he's kind of a good-natured thug. But that's the other thing. It's just like, can you imagine just a guy like that in society? Like the mafiosos, right, or whatever, the Tony Sopranos. Like you would have those people, but the thing is, it was a bit more prevalent. Prevalent there, but of course, because they're Italian. But anyways. Because think of it, there was those gangs of guys
in Italy. Yeah.
Well, because also they showed those gangs of guys who roamed around, and there were veterans. Either they're veterans or guys of the same age group, and some of them would be veterans.